In the last 72 hours, you have felt something you couldn't name. It wasn't a specific thought, it was a different texture behind your days. Maybe you woke up before your alarm, in a silence that felt larger than usual. Maybe someone from your past appeared in your mind out of nowhere, for no apparent reason, as if someone had knocked on a door you swore had been locked for years. Maybe you felt the urge to turn everything off, to disappear from your group of friends, to remain silent inside a noise others don't even perceive. This is not a coincidence. This is not the algorithm feeding you another random video about the moon. This is your energy field reacting to a threshold that is about to close, and your presence here, now, is the physical proof of it. There are 24 hours left until the new moon, and your body already knew before your mind confirmed it. There are two categories of people going through this exact moment of the lunar cycle. The first, the majority, will feel this strange weight in their chest, this sudden desire for withdrawal, this fatigue that doesn't match their routine, and will simply label it all as work stress, PMS, a poor night's sleep, or just a bad day. They will swallow the message the body is sending, distract themselves on their phone, or have an extra cup of coffee to silence the signal, and the window will close silently without that person ever knowing it existed. The second category is the minority. It is made up of those who have or are currently building the internal infrastructure to recognize this type of sign and use it to their own advantage. You are watching this video this far. That is already an indication of which group you belong to. And before I continue, I need to deromanticize a dangerous idea that surface-level spirituality sells, that the new moon is a kind of cosmic fairy godmother who will come down, touch your life with a wand, and solve everything while you sleep. That is not how any real law of the universe works. A lunar portal is not a passive astronomical event that happens to you. It is the exact point where the cost of remaining trapped in the old version of your life finally becomes greater than the fear of taking the next step. You take the step first. The conscious ground appears afterward, never before. The new moon does not do the work for you. It only opens the crack. The movement remains yours. Having said that, let's understand exactly what is happening in these 24 hours leading up to the new cycle, because this period has its own anatomy, almost invisible to those who have never learned how to read it. The hours preceding the new moon represent a sort of energetic vestibule. Think of a building with several doors. Before entering a new room, you necessarily need to cross the empty hallway that connects the two rooms. This hallway is not the end of anything nor the beginning of anything. It is pure transition. That is exactly where you are right now. The previous lunar cycle, with everything it brought, achievements, frustrations, lessons, and still open wounds, is closing slowly like a heavy door that doesn't slam shut all at once, but closes slowly, with a creak perceptible to those who pay attention. And it is precisely this creaking that you have felt in the last few days. The energy of the previous cycle does not disappear from one second to the next. It retracts, it withdraws, like the tide receding before a new wave forms. Biologically, this has a direct parallel. Before any process of cellular regeneration, the body goes through a resting phase, where activity decreases so that reconstruction can happen efficiently. Nature never builds on top of chaos. It always clears the ground first. The 24 hours before the new moon are exactly that terrain being cleared within you silently, without asking for permission, without announcement, without fanfare. And that is why most people completely misread this moment. They hope to feel something grand, a luminous and obvious sign, and for this reason they ignore the real signs, which are subtle, quiet, and absolutely precise. The first of these signs is the sudden need for isolation and inner silence. You have noticed, perhaps in the last few hours, an almost physical urge to pull away from the noise. It is not laziness. It is not bad mood. It is something deeper, an instinctive refusal to continue absorbing external stimuli while something important happens inside. Imagine an orchestra preparing to play the final note of a symphony. The conductor raises the baton, and for an instant, there is an absolute silence before the final movement. This silence is not empty, it is charged with intention. It is exactly this type of silence that your nervous system is asking for right now. When you feel the urge to cancel appointments, to answer messages later, to stay alone in a corner of the house without wanting to talk, that is not social disconnection. it is internal reconnection. The mind, when exposed to an excess of external noise, loses the ability to hear its own subtler signals, those that only appear in silence, just as a faint star only becomes visible when the city lights go out. This withdrawal is, in fact, a direct invitation from your intuition, asking for space to speak without being interrupted by the excess of external voices that normally dominate your day. It is in this silence, and only in it, that you can hear what really matters before deciding anything about the next cycle. Ignoring this call is like trying to hear an important whisper in the middle of a rock concert. Physically impossible, no matter how much effort you make. Comment pronto or pronto if you have recognized this silence in the last few days and know exactly what I am talking about. This comment is not just an interaction, it is an energetic declaration that you are willing to listen to what your own field is trying to tell you before the cycle turns. It was precisely because I recognized this type of sign repeatedly in thousands of people who went through this same silent turning point without knowing what to do with it, that I prepared Magia, M28 Exercicios, as 28 Chaves do Despertar for you. This is not just another theoretical course on generic spirituality, it is a structured 28-day journey, exactly the duration of a full lunar cycle, created to transform this restlessness you are feeling right now into clear language, into practical direction, into real decision. If you have reached this point in the video feeling that the inner silence I described is too familiar to be a coincidence, this is your confirmation. Most people feel this call and let it pass because they lack the structure to transform it into action. The minority who build this structure now is the same one that, 28 days from now, will look back and recognize the exact moment the turn began. The first pinned comment of this broadcast has all the details on how to join this journey while still within the window that is opening. Comment EU Su Does 1440. If you feel that you did not find this broadcast by chance, and go check the pinned comment before today's restlessness turns into just another day ignored like the others. Returning to what is happening inside you right now, the second sign that tends to appear in these final 24 hours is a feeling of deep fatigue, an exhaustion that does not exactly correspond to the physical effort of your day. You may have slept 8 hours and still wake up feeling like you ran a marathon during the night. This happens because, while the body rests, the mind and the energetic field are processing the closing of the previous cycle, reviewing situations, emotions, and bonds that have not yet been fully digested. It is invisible work, but extremely costly in terms of energy. Think of a computer running a system update. In the background, on the outside, the screen seems frozen with nothing happening, but on the inside, thousands of processes are being reorganized, old files being rewritten, space being cleared for the next version to run without glitches. Your body and mind are doing exactly this type of update right now, and that is why you feel the urge to slow down, to go to sleep earlier, to cancel that appointment you wouldn't normally even think about canceling. This tiredness is not weakness, it is a reboot in progress. The problem is that modern culture has taught us to treat any sign of low energy as a defect, as something to be fixed with more coffee, more stimulation, more forced productivity. And that is exactly where most people miss the opportunity. Instead of honoring this request for a pause, they fight it, push the body beyond its limit and arrive at the new cycle already exhausted, carrying the weight of the previous cycle into the next, like someone who moves house without ever unpacking the old boxes. Honoring tiredness in these specific moments is what allows energy to truly renew itself, instead of simply accumulating in increasingly heavy layers. Along with this physical tiredness, there often appears the third sign, perhaps the most disconcerting of all, the unexpected return of memories, people, and emotions that seemed completely buried. You might have thought out of nowhere of a person you haven't spoken to in years. You might have relived in surprising detail an old conversation you thought was forgotten. You might have dreamed of a past situation involving pain, regret, or longing. This is not the universe playing a cruel game of coincidence with you. It is your internal system deliberately opening the last pending files before closing the drawer of the previous cycle. Imagine someone tidying up a house before moving. Before sealing the final boxes, it is inevitable to find objects forgotten at the back of a closet, things you had set aside without realizing they were still there. These objects do not appear to hinder the move. They appear precisely so that you can decide once and for all what you will take to the new house and what you will finally discard. The same happens emotionally in these hours before the new moon. Old memories do not return to trap you in the past. They return as a final, symbolic opportunity for closure. Each memory that rises to the surface carries within it a lesson not yet fully assimilated, or an emotion not yet fully released. Ignoring this call, treating it as just a silly memory, is to lose the concrete chance to close a chapter before opening the next. Most people push these memories back under the rug, and that is why they keep carrying the same emotional weight cycle after cycle, year after year, without ever understanding why the same patterns keep repeating in relationships, at work, in self-esteem. Write in the comments the date that weighs most heavily in your field right now. It could be a birthday, a farewell, a fresh start, any date that has come to your mind in the last few days for no apparent reason. This simple gesture of naming it already begins the process of release we are talking about. It was by observing this pattern of memories returning exactly in this window, in hundreds of reports from people who went through real transformations, that the structure of Magia M28 Exercicios was designed with an entire module dedicated to recognizing and integrating exactly this type of shadow that resurfaces before each new cycle. Because it is not enough to just feel that a memory has returned, you need to know what to do with it, how to turn it into learning instead of letting it become one more accumulated burden. That is why I prepared this 28-day journey for you, so that every sign appearing right now, every memory, every old emotion, has a proper place to be processed, instead of staying left adrift inside, until the next cycle brings the same discomfort once again. The first pinned comment has the direct path to start, while still within this window that is closing in the next few hours. The fourth sign, and perhaps the most visible of all, is an intense and almost impatient desire to change something concrete in your life. It could be a sudden urge to cut your hair, to change the decor of your room, to drop a habit you know no longer serves you, or even to start something completely new, a project, a course, a different routine. This desire for change, which sometimes arrives almost as a physical urgency, is the body itself signaling that the pent-up energy from the previous cycle is ready to be directed into a new form. Think of a dam that has accumulated water over weeks. When the floodgates finally open, the force of the water that rushes out is not random. It follows exactly the direction that was released. The same is happening to you now. All the energy accumulated during the closing of the previous cycle is looking for an outlet, and this desire for change is precisely that channel forming. The difference between those who use this energy to their advantage and those who waste it lies entirely in the consciousness with which it is directed. Acting on impulse, without understanding what is truly asking for transformation, often leads to superficial changes that do not resolve the root of the discomfort. But understanding this desire as a map, as a compass pointing exactly to where your next version needs to go, turns this same impulse into a conscious decision. This is the exact moment when personal renewal ceases to be an abstract concept and becomes practical action. You are not just wishing to change, you are being summoned to define with clarity what exactly needs to change before the new moon seals the intentions of the next cycle. These 24 hours preceding the new moon are therefore the ideal time for conscious preparation, and not for disorganized, impulsive action. It is the perfect interval to observe, with honesty, which thoughts have dominated your mind over the last few days, which feelings you have been avoiding fully feeling, and which habits you already know, deep down, are no longer part of who you are becoming. Think of a farmer before planting. He does not cast seeds into just any ground. He first turns the soil, removes stones, pulls out weeds, so that the seed has a real chance to grow strong. Defining a new intention without first doing this internal cleansing is like planting in rubble-filled ground. The seed may germinate, but it will struggle against everything that is still accumulated there. That is why true transformation never begins in the external world. It begins exactly here, in the silence within, in the conscious decision to let go of what has already served its purpose and to give concrete space for what is yet to be born. And the more you resist this process of internal observation, the longer it takes for external change to manifest. Because all real transformation must necessarily first go through this invisible stage of preparation. Most people will go through this new moon exactly as they went through the previous one, without observing, without letting go, without defining anything with clarity, just waiting for life to change on its own while they continue repeating the same emotional patterns. And it is precisely because of recognizing this cycle of repetition in so many people who feel the same 4 signs I have just described but never know how to transform that into practical direction that Magia M28. Exercicios was built as a complete path, day after day, aligned with the lunar cycle itself, so that you do not just feel the signs, but effectively know what to do with each of them. This is not just another loose course on generic self-knowledge. It is a 28-day map that accompanies you exactly through the journey you are experiencing right now in these last few hours. Recognizing the sign, integrate the shadow it reveals, and transform this awareness into a practical decision about your own life. If you have been feeling lost, different from the people around you, or simply overwhelmed by feeling things that no one else seems to feel, this journey was designed exactly for you. The responsibility to use this specific window that is closing in the next few hours is yours, and no one else will remind you of it once this video ends. The first pinned comment has the direct access, and it will not remain available under the same conditions after this lunar cycle completes. With this conscious preparation done, silence heard, exhaustion honored, memories revisited, and desire for change directed, it remains to understand the deeper meaning of what is about to happen. The new moon in the sky is literally invisible. Unlike the full moon, which illuminates everything with an obvious and undeniable light, the new moon does not appear. It is there, spinning in exactly the same place as always, but the illuminated side is turned away from the earth, and so for us it simply vanishes from the sky for a night. This disappearance is not absence, it is pure potential. It is the same principle as a blank canvas before any work is created, or a womb before any life is generated. The void is not the opposite of creation, it is the very condition necessary for creation to happen. This is why, in practically every tradition that has observed the sky throughout human history, the new moon has always been associated with rebirth, not an end. It represents exactly the 0 point, the instant between what is no longer and what has not yet begun, the only place where a new decision can truly be born without the weight of what came before. The 4 signs you recognized in this transmission, the silence asking for space, the exhaustion asking for a pause, the memories asking for closure, the desire asking for direction, are not loose and disconnected coincidences. They are, together, the very voice of your internal process of renewal, speaking to you in the only language that can cut through the noise of daily life, sensation, intuition, subtle sign. The question that remains, now that there are only a few hours left until this cycle closes, is not whether you will feel these signs again next month, because you will. The real question is whether, this time, you will choose to listen to them with awareness, instead of simply going through them on autopilot as you have done in so many previous cycles. What you have heard up to here was only the preparation, the full revelation of how these signs connect with your next phase of life and exactly what to do in the next 24 hours so as not to waste this specific window is in the video that is appearing now on your screen. Click on it. The first 60 seconds will change the way you understand everything you have felt this last week. And if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, understand one important thing. Every video here is not an isolated piece of content. It is a coordinate within a larger map, built cycle after cycle, window after window, throughout the entire lunar year. If you are not subscribed, you will continue receiving only loose pieces of this map without ever seeing the complete design. The upcoming videos show exactly what happens after this new moon, how the energy unfolds in the days that follow, and missing this sequence is missing the entire context of the journey you began to cross today. Subscribe now, turn on the bell notification, and do not let the next piece of this map go unnoticed by you. Just as the signs you only recognized after watching this video almost went unnoticed.